You've got the technical skills down. Your code is clean, your system design is solid, you've practiced leak code until you can solve problems in your sleep. You've nailed the coding rounds. You can explain complex architectures without breaking a sweat. Then comes the behavioral interview, and suddenly you're stumbling, rambling, walking out, wondering what just happened. The questions feel vague. Tell me about a time. How do you handle conflict? What's your greatest weakness? You freeze. You go blank. You walk out convinced you failed. Here's what nobody tells you. Behavioral interviews aren't really about your answers. They're about how you think, how you handle pressure, and whether they want to work with you every single day. Let's start with the opener you'll hear in almost every behavioral round. So tell me about yourself. Most engineers tank this immediately. They launch into a chronological autobiography where they grew up, their college major, their first job, like reading from a resume in paragraph form. That's not what they're asking. They want to know, who are you as an engineer right now and why are you here? Here's the framework: present, past, future. Start with where you are now, your current role, what you do, what you're good at. Then briefly connect the dots. How did you get here? What experiences shaped you? Then land on why you're interested in this role specifically. That's it. 2 minutes, tops, no childhood stories. No recitation of every job you've ever had. Just a clear, concise explanation of your professional identity and why this conversation makes sense. The STAR method, situation, task, action, result, is everywhere in interview prep guides, and it's not wrong. But treating it like a rigid checklist is exactly why most people fail at it. You've probably seen candidates who recite perfect STAR stories like robots, somehow still getting rejected. They nail the structure, hit all the points, sound polished and professional, and then they don't get the offer. That's because they missed the actual point entirely. The STAR method is a scaffold, not a script. It's there to keep you from rambling, not to turn you into an answer machine. Here's a bad answer to tell me about a time you disagreed with someone on your team. So, at my last job, we were working on this big feature, and my coworker wanted to use this one framework, but I thought we should. Let me show you what I mean. Use a different one. We had a meeting about it and discussed the pros and cons, and eventually we decided to go with my idea, and the project was really successful. Vague, generic, no ownership, no insight. They learned nothing about how you actually operate. Now, here's a better answer. My teammate and I disagreed on whether to refactor a legacy module or build around it. He was worried about the timeline impact. I acknowledged his concern but laid out the technical debt we'd accumulate by not refactoring. We agreed to a small proof of concept. I spent 2 days building the refactored version alongside a quick implementation at his approach. We presented both to the team, and the data showed the refactor would actually save us time in the long run. He became one of the biggest advocates. I learned that sometimes the best way to resolve disagreement isn't to argue harder. It's to build something that makes the trade-offs visible. See the difference? Specific actions, real trade-offs, collaboration, and a clear takeaway. That's what they're actually looking for. The real secret? Behavioral interviews are just conversations, human ones. The same ones you've been having your entire life, but with higher stakes and stranger formal rules. Think about it. When a colleague asks how your weekend was, you don't recite a structured response. You tell a story. You read their reaction. You adjust. Your interviewer isn't looking for a flawless performance. They're looking for someone they can trust, someone who can think on their feet, someone who admits when they messed up and learned from it. They're imagining you in meetings, in code reviews, and the inevitable crises that happen at every company. Can they trust you when things go wrong? So stop memorizing scripts. Start building a mental toolkit of 3 to 5 real moments from your career where you solved something hard, led something complicated, or recovered from something that went wrong. Not heroic moments where you saved the company single-handedly. Those stories rarely sound believable anyway. Real moments. The time you pushed back on a deadline and explained why the rush would cost more than the delay. The time you admitted you didn't know something and then actually found the answer. The time you disagreed with a teammate about a technical approach and found a path forward together. These aren't just stories. They're proof of how you operate. When the question comes, don't panic. Take a breath. Ask for clarification if you need it. Can I take a moment to think of a good example? Is always acceptable. In fact, it's a good sign. It shows you're thoughtful, not reactive. Then pick the story that actually fits the question they asked, not the one you memorized for. Tell me about a challenge. If your story doesn't quite match, acknowledge it. I don't have a perfect example for that, but here's something related that might be useful. That kind of flexibility, that's senior level behavior. Structure it, but keep it natural. Set the context briefly, just enough so they understand the stakes. What was the situation? What needed to happen? Then get to the important part. What did you actually do? Not, we accomplished, or the team delivered, or my PM decided. What did you do? The actions you took, the decisions you made, the trade-offs you navigated. That's what they're hiring for. Not the outcome, but the thinking that produced it. And the result? Keep it honest. Sometimes things don't work out perfectly. That's okay. Maybe better than okay. And here's what most people forget, the reflection. What did you learn? How would you handle it differently today? What does this moment tell them about how you'll show up on their team? That's where the real insight lives. A junior engineer recites what happened. A senior engineer explains what it taught them. That distinction matters more than any technical accomplishment you list. The hard part? Vulnerability. Admitting mistakes, talking about failure, showing up without the polished armor. That feels dangerous, especially in a high-stakes interview. Your nerves kick in. You start second-guessing everything. Should I sound more confident? Should I downplay the failure? Should I spin this into a win? Here's the truth. The people interviewing you are nervous too. They're worried about making a bad hire. They're under pressure to fill the role. They're human beings looking for someone they can trust, not corporate robots reciting perfect answers. But that's exactly what distinguishes a junior engineer from a senior one. Juniors protect themselves. They spin every setback into a hidden win. They deflect responsibility. Seniors understand that growth lives in the mistakes, not the perfect wins. They own their missteps. They talk about what they do differently. They demonstrate the kind of self-awareness that makes someone safe to work with. When you can talk about a time you failed, really failed, in a way that cost something and what it taught you, you're showing them the exact quality they're hiring for, the ability to reflect, learn, and grow. This also comes up in level calibration. When they ask what level you're targeting, be specific about what that means to you. A junior engineer needs guidance and grows through instruction. A mid-level engineer operates independently within known contexts. A senior engineer navigates ambiguity, mentors others, and shapes technical direction. When you say you're targeting senior, back it up with examples. Not just what you've done, but how you've operated. Have you mentored junior engineers? Have you driven technical decisions? Have you owned complex, ambiguous problems? That's what senior means, not just years of experience. And here's something that will set you apart: ask good questions. Ask questions that show you're thinking about how you'd work there. What's the biggest challenge your team is facing right now? How does the team handle disagreements about technical approach? What does success look like for this role in the first 6 months? What's something you wish you'd known before joining this team? These aren't just questions, they're signals that you're serious about the role, that you're thinking about. Every behavioral interview ends with, "Do you have any questions for us?" Most people say no or ask something generic like, "What's the tech stack?" That's a missed opportunity. How you'll contribute, that you understand, this is a two-way street. You're not just hoping they pick you, you're figuring out if this is actually somewhere you want to work. This week, pick one moment from your work that didn't go perfectly, maybe a deployment that failed, maybe a design decision you got wrong. Write it out. Not for an interview, but for yourself. What happened? What did you do? What did you learn? How did it change you? Get comfortable with that story because that's the one that'll actually connect. That's the one that shows them who you really are, and that's exactly what they're trying to figure out. Your technical skills got you in the room. Your humanity gets you the offer. Don't sacrifice that trying to sound perfect. They're not hiring a robot, they're hiring you. The real you, with all the complexity and growth that comes from actually doing this work. Subscribe for more on navigating the engineering career maze, drop a comment with your own behavioral interview story, and I'll see you next time.